Penguin Random House Audio presents The Liar's Child by Carla Buckley. Read for you by George Newbern. For Kate Messiac, who believed, and Ruth Elaine Buckley, who will be missed. Prologue. Hank. It wasn't as though anyone came right out and said it in so many words. That wasn't how small towns worked. No, it was mostly raised eyebrows, grunted half-sentences. People knocked on Hank's door, shuffled on his porch. They waylaid him at the post office. They tried to be reassuring. "Not your fault, Hank," they'd say. "Could have happened to anyone." They cleared their throats, squinted into the distance. "It was right under our noses," they murmured. What they really meant was right under your nose. 500,000 kids go missing every year. Most of them run away or are thrown out of their homes by their families. The rest are kidnapped. These are just the cases reported to the police, so it's a rough estimate. Look around your neighborhood at the kids playing in the streets or walking to school. Hold up your hand and blot one of them out. Imagine him wavering, the lines of his body and clothes and backpack gently blurring into a sharp bolt of sunlight, or slipping into a shadow at the end of the playing field. There, between the trees. Gone. Most abductions are what's known as custodial interference, kidnapping by a family member defying a court order. The FBI doesn't look into these cases. They leave it to the local cops to handle the interviews and hunt down leads. You might think that these kids are safe, given that it's a loving parent who's taken them, but you'd be wrong. Although most of these kids are recovered and returned to the custodial parent, some end up dead. Pawns in ugly games that have been going on since long before they were born. You've seen the headlines, clicked through to the images, the car floating in the lake, the dizzying span of a bridge, the house reduced to ash. A smaller number, just over 100 kids a year, are abductions by non-family members. Still, usually someone the child knows. That kidnapper has spent time learning the kid's habits, marking his vulnerable moments in each day, maybe even casually befriending him, getting things to the point where he willingly agrees to walk away from his friends or his own front lawn and climb into a stranger's car. The remaining kidnappings are true stranger danger, crimes of opportunity seized during a sliver of time when no one is watching. A day is made of those slivers, isn't it? Sure, your kid can walk 3 houses down to her best friend's house. Why not let your son play ball with 6 or 7 other kids in a park you can see from your back window? It's helpful when your daughter offers to run over to the bread aisle and grab the hamburger buns while you load a plastic bag with heads of broccoli and wonder whether you can convince your kids to eat them. Of these true stranger abductions, half the kids make it back to their families, and the other half are murdered, usually within the first 3 hours of being taken. A very few, 3% of all abductions, remain lost, their whereabouts never discovered. Ask any parent what terrifies them the most, and this is what they'd say. In a town so small you could drive all the way through in 7 minutes, a missing child was big news. It had been before, and it was once again. This time, though, 2 kids were involved. For a while, no one talked about anything else. It got so if Hank saw someone walking toward him with that purposeful gait, he'd yank down the brim of his cap and hurry past. Let them think he'd gone back to drinking. Let them think too many memories had driven him to it. But it wasn't what folks did say that he didn't want to talk about. It was what they didn't. How, if Hank had devoted his life to finding lost children, had he missed spotting the 2 staying right next door? A brown cicada shell, front legs bent and praying. The bug that had lived inside it had crawled out and left behind its skin perfectly whole. The crooked antenna, the fat eyes, and curved back. The only difference from the bug and its shell is the split down the middle, easily pressed back together and made whole. Chapter 1. Cassie. Cassie could never tell when she pushed off the railing behind her whether she'd make it to the other side. There was always that sickening instant as she hung suspended between the two balconies when she imagined misjudging the hard lurch forward. Would someone be looking out their window at the exact moment she plummeted past to lock eyes with her and register the horror? She'd be screaming. She always screamed when startled. It annoyed her mom endlessly. "Would you cut that out?" she'd snap, as if Cassie could control it. Cassie would be screaming until the pavement met her body, and that would be that. She hadn't planned on sneaking into the vacant apartment tonight. Everyone had been sitting around the bonfire, complaining there was nowhere to go, when Cassie had found herself saying, "I know a place." No one paid her any attention. Why should they? They were in high school, and she was the 7th grader they let hang around sometimes. Cassie summoned her courage and said it again, blushing when Danny turned to her with sudden interest. His red hair curling out from beneath the brim of his black beanie, death cab t-shirt hanging from his shoulders, and jeans dragging to the ground, hems torn and shredded. He got up, and so they all did. Mikey P., Bruno, and Lexi, following her over the dunes, where the huge beach houses sat facing the ocean, and down the sandy road that led around the paradise and into the courtyard. As they made their way through the parked cars to the staircase, Cassie began to have second thoughts. Did she really want to give up her secret hiding place? The one space she had to herself, away from her little brother and her mom? Once the 4 of them claimed it, would it ever be Cassie's again? Worse, what if Danny saw it and laughed at her? She might be shut out of his group, never allowed to return. They waited outside on the walkway as she let herself into the dark apartment where her parents and little brother slept. She tiptoed to the sliding glass door, unlatched it, and stepped out onto the balcony. She climbed onto a chair, and then the railing, pressing her palm against the wall for balance. Stretching out a foot, she hooked her leg over the railing of the balcony next door. There was always the chance a renter in one of the beach houses on the other side of the alley might look over and spot her. It was almost Memorial Day. Every week a new wave of vacationers arrived, unloading luggage and beer cases, and dogs that ran around wagging their tails and making her brother stand on the balcony and stare. Cassie wasn't worried about the vacationers, though. Even if someone did glance up, who would think to call the police? They lived in their happy world. They never saw Cassie in hers. The first time, Cassie had landed hard on the balcony. Boon had been the one to notice her bloodied knees and palms the next day, reaching out a finger that she'd smacked away. But it had been enough for their mom to frown at Cassie. Gym class, Cassie had lied. Landing wasn't the hard part, though, fixed by lining the balcony floor with cushions hauled out from the sagging sofa inside. It was the jumping. She counted. 1, 2, 3. She sailed weightless. She thought her heart would explode with joy. She didn't see any of them again for almost a week. After school, she dumped her backpack at home and headed out before Boon could whine about wanting to play, wanting a snack, wanting help with his spelling words. She checked all their favorite places: the fishing pier, the arcade, the Baptist church playground where they liked to sit on the swings and smoke, the thrift store, the dollar store. But the Cassie-shaped space she'd carved out among them had lasted just the one night before closing up again, leaving her standing alone on the outside again. She was coming back from the beach when she entered the courtyard and spotted Bruno and Mikey P. over by the swimming pool. They didn't live at the Paradise. None of them did. Danny lived with his mom and 2 little sisters in the trailer park. Lexi lived with her stepdad, the next town over. Bruno lived a couple blocks away with some old lady Cassie figured must be his grandma. Cassie had seen them together once at the grocery store, the old lady pushing the cart and Bruno walking along beside her and looking bored. Were they waiting for her? Did that mean Danny was coming too? She felt a flicker of hope. Why else would they be here, hanging around a crappy pool that was still too cold to swim in? She took a step toward them, and another, and then she was committed. She opened the gate. Neither of them looked over. She stopped to stand in a nearby.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?